The hum of the first-class cabin barely masked the sting in Linda Carter's voice. "Sir, you need to move. This seat is for a real premium passenger." Her manicured finger cut through the air, pointing at Michael Harrington like a guilty man in a courtroom. Charles Whitmore, draped in privilege and platinum elite status, smirked beside her. Every pair of eyes turned. Some recorded. Others pretended not to see. Michael didn't flinch. His tailored suit, polished shoes, and calm gaze told one story. His skin color told them another. What they didn't know: one call from him could burn this airline to the ground. Michael Harrington had boarded Atlas Air Flight 782 with the quiet precision of a man who had done this 1,000 times before. He'd arrived early, passed through security without incident, and walked the jet bridge with his leather briefcase in one hand, the Wall Street Journal in the other. Seat 1A, window first class, was exactly where he expected to be. The hum of the cabin was low, the scent of fresh brewed coffee drifting from the galley. He settled in, crossing one leg over the other, opening the newspaper to the business section. Then came the voice, sharp enough to slice through the warm air. "Sir, you need to move. This seat is for a real premium passenger." Heads turned like a ripple through water. Linda Carter, the lead flight attendant, stood square in the aisle, posture rigid, finger aimed directly at him. Her immaculate uniform and painted smile did little to soften the words. Michael looked up slowly, meeting her gaze without a word. Behind her, Charles Whitmore leaned in the aisle, his platinum status pin catching the overhead light. He was the embodiment of entitlement. Tailored sport coat, gold watch, a smirk that said he'd already won. "That's right," he added, as if Linda needed backup. This seat was clearly assigned in error. Michael lowered his eyes to the paper, took a measured breath. "My boarding pass says 1A. Linda didn't glance at it. "We've had issues with fraudulent bookings lately. I'll need to verify your credit card used for purchase." She projected the words so they reached every ear in the cabin. It wasn't a request. It was a public accusation. From 2 rows back, a man in a gray suit pretended to scroll through his phone, his camera lens tilted toward them. A younger couple whispered behind cupped hands. The performance was unfolding for an audience, and Linda knew it. Michael folded the paper carefully, placing it on the armrest. From the inner pocket of his blazer, he withdrew the boarding pass, crisp, printed 3 weeks ago, and held it out between 2 fingers. "Seat 1A, purchased well in advance." Linda took it like contraband, holding it up to the light, tilting it back and forth as though she might find counterfeit ink hidden beneath the surface. "Printing quality seems suspicious," she announced. A few seats away, a young woman with curly auburn hair frowned, setting her tablet aside. Her name was Sophie Reed. She watched Linda's theatrics for a beat, then reached into her tote for her phone. "Excuse me," Sophie's voice carried over the hum, "but this is insane. I'm recording this." Linda's head snapped toward her. "Ma'am, please put your device away. This is an internal airline matter." "It's discrimination," Sophie shot back, already swiping to start an Instagram live. "And I'm documenting it." The words landed like a spark in dry brush. On her screen, a counter appeared, 23 viewers, 67, 156. Charles stepped closer to Michael's row, his cologne heavy in the air. "Look, I have a critical meeting in San Francisco. I'm Platinum Elite. I should have priority seating rights." The words dripped with condescension, as though Michael's mere presence in the seat was an affront to the natural order. Michael didn't look at him. Instead, he studied Linda, whose polished composure was hardening into something uglier. The accusation wasn't just about a ticket. It was about who belonged here. The hum of the cabin grew louder as passengers shifted in their seats. Phones were coming out, lenses discreetly angled. Someone coughed in the uneasy silence. From the galley, another attendant peeked around the corner, eyes flicking between Linda and Michael like a spectator at a prize fight. Linda extended her hand again. "Credit card, please, for verification." Michael's voice was calm, even, but there was steel beneath it. Are you requesting this from every passenger in first class, or just me? She hesitated. We have standard procedures. Procedures that target certain appearances? His words were soft, but carried weight. Charles let out a scoff. This isn't about race. It's about airline policy. Michael turned his gaze on him, unblinking. When was the last time you were asked for your credit card after boarding? Charles opened his mouth, then closed it, his smirk faltering. That's different. The airline knows me. They know you because you're white, Michael said evenly. Or because you fly often. The question hung in the recycled air. Charles shifted uncomfortably, glancing toward Linda for support. She didn't meet his eyes. Sophie's live stream counter ticked past 1,200. Comments began flashing across her screen. Get his name. Sue them. This is disgusting. Linda's voice pitched higher, trying to regain control. Sir, we can resolve this if you'll just cooperate. I can upgrade you to first class on the next available flight. Michael arched an eyebrow. Upgrade me to the seat I already purchased? From the intercom at the front, the gate agent's voice announced final boarding for Flight 782, urging passengers to take their seats. Charles's impatience bubbled over. Just move him already. Some of us have important schedules. Linda straightened, emboldened. Sir, if you don't comply, I'll have to call security. Michael's gaze was steady. Around them, the tension in the cabin was thick enough to touch. Security, he repeated, as if tasting the word. He reached down, adjusting the leather strap on his briefcase. His fingers brushed the embossed logo, Harrington Global Capital. He stood slowly, every motion deliberate. The cabin's collective breath held. For a moment, it looked as though he might relent. But then Sophie's voice cut in from behind her phone. They're harassing a paying customer in first class. This is going live. On her screen, the title appeared in bold. First Class Racism, Happening Now. The number beside it surged, 2,300, 3,100, climbing fast. The air in the cabin had shifted. The hum of the engines outside was still distant, but inside, tension buzzed like an electric current. Sophie's live stream numbers kept climbing, her phone angled discreetly toward Michael. Comments scrolled by in a blur, some urging him to stand his ground, others demanding the airline explain itself. Michael, still standing beside seat 1A, glanced at Linda with a look that was neither hostile nor deferential, just steady. He didn't rush his words. When exactly? He asked, his voice calm enough to make those nearby lean in to hear. Does Atlas Air require its platinum members to show their credit card after boarding? Linda blinked, caught between rehearsed authority and the unyielding logic of the question. We verify purchases when necessary. Michael tilted his head slightly. Necessary? And what makes it necessary in this case? Her jaw tightened. Sir, I'm just following procedure. Charles, still hovering like a shadow just behind her shoulder, jumped in. It's obvious. I'm Platinum Elite. The airline knows me. They don't know you. Michael turned toward him, eyes level, voice even. They know you because you're white, or because you fly frequently? The murmur from nearby seats deepened. A businessman in 2A shifted uncomfortably. The elderly woman in 3A frowned, glancing at her husband. Charles's mouth opened and closed, his earlier bravado slipping away. That's not what this is about, he said, but even he didn't sound convinced. For a moment, the balance seemed to shift. Passengers' eyes were no longer just on Michael. Some were on Linda now, as if silently questioning her stance. The live stream viewers swelled past 4,000. Sophie's camera caught every flicker of uncertainty. Then, from the front of the cabin, another figure appeared. Karen Mitchell, gate manager for Atlas Air at JFK, strode down the aisle with the brisk efficiency of someone accustomed to solving problems quickly. Her navy blazer was immaculate, her ID badge swinging from a lanyard. Mr. Harrington, she said, voice clipped but polite. I understand there's been a seating issue. We can accommodate you on the next available flight to San Francisco in first class, with a travel voucher for your inconvenience. It was framed as a generous offer, But Michael recognized the underlying move. Remove the problem quietly. Reset the optics. I don't have a seating issue, Michael replied evenly. I have seat 1A, purchased 3 weeks ago. The boarding pass has been verified. Karen offered a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sometimes our system misallocates premium seats. It's easier for everyone if we resolve it here, without delaying the flight. And the resolution you're proposing, Michael said, is for me to give up the seat I paid for, so that someone else can have it. Sir, Karen began, but he held up a hand, not to silence her rudely, but to signal that he wasn't finished. Does Atlas Air's policy allow Platinum members to take seats from confirmed ticket holders? Karen's smile faltered. That's not how he'd phrase it. It's how it's happening. His voice carried enough to reach the row behind. Several passengers looked down at their laps, avoiding eye contact. For a brief instant, Michael felt the current shift again. Passengers leaning toward him in silent agreement, the narrative beginning to tilt. The live stream ticked past 5,000 viewers. Sophie's phone vibrated with notifications as comments poured in. Hold your ground. This is outrageous. Name and shame them. But Karen was practiced. She glanced at Linda, then back to Michael, and delivered the line with calm authority. Mr. Harrington, if you'll gather your belongings, we'll ensure you're rebooked and compensated generously. You'll be on your way with minimal delay. It was a velvet glove over the same iron fist. Leave, and they could pretend this never happened. Michael regarded her for a long moment. Compensation doesn't erase discrimination, he said. The words hung there, heavier than the recycled air. Karen's composure didn't break, but her gaze flickered, just for a second, toward Charles. It was all the confirmation Michael needed that this wasn't a clerical error. This was preference, thinly veiled. The live stream count jumped again. 7,200 now. Sophie murmured into her mic. They're trying to buy him out of his seat. This is unbelievable. Linda stepped forward, voice a shade sharper. Sir, if we keep discussing this, we'll delay departure. Other passengers have places to be. Michael didn't move. He looked past Linda, past Karen, as though measuring the cabin itself. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his stillness, a patience that wasn't surrender, but calculation. From the overhead bin, he retrieved his briefcase and set it on the seat. The leather gleamed under the cabin lights, the embossed Harrington Global Capital logo visible to anyone paying attention. He opened it just enough to slip the folded newspaper inside. Then his phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. He took it out, glanced at the screen. The display read, Board voting room ready, 3:00 p.m. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. He locked the phone and slid it back into his pocket. The shift was subtle, but Sophie's camera caught it. The faintest change in his posture, the quiet assurance of someone who held cards no one else at this table realized existed. Karen, mistaking his silence for consent, nodded. We'll have your new boarding pass ready at the gate. Michael simply sat back down in seat 1A. I'll remain here. Linda exchanged a quick, frustrated look with Karen. Charles let out an audible sigh of annoyance, muttering something about wasting everyone's time. But Michael didn't respond to any of them. He leaned back, opened his newspaper again, and let the noise wash over him. The live stream comments exploded. He's not moving. Stay strong. This is about more than a seat. No one in the cabin yet understood the significance of that buzz from his phone. But Michael did. The clock was ticking, and when it reached the right moment, the balance of power in this cabin, and far beyond it, would shift. The hush in the cabin was deceptive, stretched taut like a rope about to snap. Linda Carter's patience had worn thin. She stepped forward again, posture rigid, her voice pitched higher so it could carry to the farthest row of first class. Mr. Harrington, if you don't comply, I will have to call security. The word security landed with deliberate weight, like a gavel falling. Michael didn't flinch, but the statement was meant to brand him as the problem, the disruptive passenger holding everyone else hostage. From 3A, the elderly woman who had been quietly observing leaned toward her husband and murmured, "This doesn't seem right." Her husband's brow furrowed, but he kept his eyes down. Neither of them spoke up. The silence of bystanders was as much a part of the theater as Linda's voice. Michael folded the corner of his newspaper and set it on the armrest. His eyes moved slowly from Linda to Karen, then to Charles, who now wore an expression of smug impatience. Before he could reply, the intercom crackled. "Flight crew, please expedite resolution. We need clearance in the next 15 minutes. Linda's expression tightened. She tapped her earpiece and spoke into the hidden mic at her collar. "Captain, we're in the middle of a seating dispute, attempting to resolve." The reply was faint, but audible enough to carry to those seated close to her. "This is Morales. Resolve it quickly. We can't miss our slot. Do what you need to do." The effect was immediate. The words weren't malicious in tone, but they added the full weight of operational urgency to Linda's side of the argument. The passengers, already restless, now had a new reason to view Michael as the obstacle. A businessman in 2A sighed heavily and muttered to no one in particular, "We're all going to be late at this rate." The man across from him nodded. Even those who might have been sympathetic a moment ago began shifting in their seats, the social current subtly pulling toward, "Let's just get moving." Linda seized the moment. "Sir, you're now delaying the flight. If you'd simply cooperate, we can all be on our way." Karen stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound like she was offering a concession. "Michael, may I call you Michael? You could be in the lounge right now with a fresh boarding pass, a travel voucher, and a glass of champagne while you wait for the next departure. It's an easy win." Charles leaned into the aisle again, his tone dripping with false concern. "Come on, man, be reasonable. Don't drag this out." Michael glanced toward the window. On the tarmac, ground crew were moving slowly, their reflective vests flashing under the late afternoon light. The hum of the engines was still absent. The flight wasn't even close to pushback. Yet the narrative was being shaped. He was the reason for the delay. The live stream counter on Sophie's phone was still climbing, 8,000 now. But Michael could feel the mood in the cabin shifting against him. Human impatience was a powerful force. The combination of the captain's directive, the subtle sighs, and Linda's insistence created a chorus of pressure. A young man in 4A leaned forward, his voice quiet but sharp. "Some of us have connections to make." The implication was clear. "Your fight is costing me something." Michael let the weight of it all hang for a moment. Then he rose from his seat. Not quickly, not with any hint of aggression, just a slow, deliberate movement that drew every eye. He adjusted his jacket, smoothed the sleeve with one hand, and looked directly at Linda. Her chin lifted slightly, as though she believed victory was within reach. The cabin was utterly still, save for the faint tapping of Sophie's fingers on her phone screen. She was narrating softly to her viewers. "He's getting up. They might actually remove him." Michael reached down, picked up his briefcase, and held it at his side. His gaze never left Linda's. When he spoke, it was quiet enough that those in the back might have to strain to hear, but there was an edge to his tone that carried through the air like a thin blade. "I will remember," he said slowly. "Every word, every gesture, every assumption you've made today." Linda's smirk faltered, just barely. For the first time since this began, there was a flicker of something. Was it doubt? In her eyes. But Michael didn't give her time to answer. He stepped into the aisle, still holding the briefcase, and paused just long enough for the moment to settle in the minds of everyone watching. Sophie's live stream comments exploded. "Whoa, that tone. She looks nervous now. This isn't over." Karen shifted uncomfortably, glancing back toward the front of the plane, as though she were suddenly aware that the captain might not be the only one interested in how this ended. Michael didn't break eye contact with Linda as he moved one step forward, positioning himself just at the edge of the row. The silence was no longer entirely in her favor. Still, the social gravity in the cabin was heavy. The captain's words had done their job. The impatience, the sense of collective urgency, the framing of Michael as the source of the problem. It all pressed in like invisible walls. But Michael's tone, his control over his own movements, suggested a different truth. He wasn't being herded out. He was marking this moment, branding it into the memory of everyone present. And though no one could yet see it, the real shift in power was still ahead. The aisle between Michael and the front of the cabin felt like a fault line, silent, tense, waiting for the next tremor. He stood there with his briefcase, the leather catching the overhead light. The embossed Harrington Global Capital logo was small, tasteful, but it had the gravitas of a signet ring. Anyone in high finance would have recognized it instantly. He set the briefcase on the armrest of seat 1A and opened it just far enough to slide the folded Wall Street Journal back inside. The front page was visible for a moment. A bold headline above the fold read, "Atlas Air awaits mega deal decision." Beneath it, a subheading about a $600 million acquisition vote scheduled for later that day. Linda didn't notice, or maybe she did and dismissed it. But Karen's eyes flicked to the page, her brow creasing before she schooled her expression. Michael sat again, his posture as composed as when he'd first boarded, one hand resting lightly on the briefcase. Around him, the low murmur of the cabin returned, though now it carried a different note. A few passengers had clearly taken notice of the briefcase logo and the newspaper headline. They didn't speak, but their sidelong glances betrayed curiosity. Karen adjusted the earpiece clipped discreetly to her collar. She turned slightly away from the passengers, speaking into the small mic on the cord. Her voice was lowered, meant for crew only, but the cabin wasn't loud enough to mask it entirely. "Copy that," she said, pausing as if listening. Then, more quietly, "Understood. Evelyn Shore says handle it quietly. Don't make noise." The words slipped out in a rhythm so habitual that Karen might not have realized she'd spoken them just loud enough for someone within a few feet to catch. Sophie Reed, still filming from her seat, lowered her phone slightly, eyes narrowing. She glanced toward Michael, but he was already watching Karen with a subtle, measuring look. Linda was busy fussing with the seatbelt of an empty chair, avoiding eye contact with Michael. Charles was scrolling through his phone, smirking occasionally, though whether at something on the screen or at the situation, it was hard to tell. Michael let the silence stretch before speaking, his voice low enough to make those close to him lean in. "Evelyn Shore," he repeated softly, almost to himself. Karen's head turned sharply, eyes widening for a fraction of a second before she masked it. "Sir, I think it would be best if—" But Michael had already shifted his gaze, no longer looking at her directly. His mind was working, connecting threads. Evelyn Shore wasn't just a name. She was the acting COO of Atlas Air, a woman known in corporate circles for her ability to manage optics in sensitive situations. The fact that her name was being invoked here at this level meant this was more than a petty seating dispute. The live stream viewership ticked upward, 9,500 now. Sophie's audience hanging on every nuance. She didn't fully understand the significance of the name Michael had just spoken, but she knew her viewers would pick up on his change in tone. Karen recovered quickly. "Mr. Harrington, I assure you this is a simple misunderstanding. Let's not involve anyone unnecessarily." Michael's expression remained neutral. "I see." The two words were almost polite, but the weight behind them was undeniable. At the front of the cabin, another attendant peeked in from the galley, curiosity plain on her face. She looked from Karen to Michael to Linda, clearly trying to piece together why the atmosphere felt so charged. Linda, perhaps sensing that control was slipping in some intangible way, stepped forward again. "We're still in a holding pattern, Mr. Harrington. If you would—" Michael cut her off without raising his voice. "Your holding pattern is temporary. Mine isn't." It wasn't a threat, not outright. But something in the phrasing made Linda pause mid-step. Karen cleared her throat. "Let's focus on resolving this before the captain follows up again." Michael leaned back in his seat, one hand still on the briefcase, his gaze on the middle distance as though neither Linda nor Karen mattered anymore. His focus was elsewhere. deeper into the structure of Atlas Air, into the offices where Evelyn Shore was no doubt sitting, waiting for a report. The live stream comments were lighting up. Who's Evelyn Shore? He knows someone. This just got interesting. Michael tapped the edge of the briefcase lightly 3 times, a gesture that could have been idle habit or deliberate signal. The sound was soft, but it drew the attention of the man in 2A, who stared at the logo for a beat longer than politeness allowed. Sophie whispered into her phone, "I think he knows someone high up. This isn't random anymore." Karen's radio crackled faintly. She turned away, murmuring something into the mic that was too quiet to catch this time. But the tightness in her shoulders gave her away. Whatever she'd just heard, or been told, wasn't good news for her side of this standoff. Michael, meanwhile, closed his eyes briefly, as if running through a list in his head. When he opened them again, there was a faint trace of something in his expression that hadn't been there before. Anticipation. His fingers drummed once on the leather case. He looked toward Sophie, who gave the slightest nod, her phone still trained on him. Then he glanced back at Karen, holding her gaze for a moment longer than comfort allowed. "Evelyn Shore," he murmured again, quieter this time, but with the certainty of a man who had just found the thread he needed to pull. Michael's gaze drifted briefly toward the window, watching the slow choreography of baggage handlers and fuel trucks on the tarmac. The rhythm outside was steady, controlled. Inside, the air was taut, brittle, every exchange a test of balance and dominance. He reached into his jacket pocket and retrieved his phone. No flourish, no grand announcement, just the quiet decisiveness of a man who knew precisely what he was about to do. His thumb moved across the screen with practiced ease, bringing up a secure contact list labeled only with initials and roles. He tapped one. The line clicked, and a familiar voice answered almost immediately. "Elliot." "Yes, Michael?" The tone on the other end was crisp, the faint hum of a distant conference room audible behind it. "Postpone the vote." Michael's voice carried no hesitation. "And prepare full divestment. All positions. Atlas Air." There was a pause, followed by the sound of rapid typing. "Understood. Do you want the statement drafted now?" "Yes. Hold release until my signal." It was the kind of order that didn't need explanation, only execution. Elliot's acknowledgement was brisk, almost military. "Consider it done." Michael ended the call with a tap, slid the phone back into his pocket, and leaned into his seat as though nothing significant had happened. But Sophie Reed had caught the whole exchange on her live stream. Her audience, now over 12,000, erupted in speculation. "He's pulling money out? What does divestment mean? This guy's connected." Karen, still standing in the aisle, had caught enough to pale slightly. She opened her mouth, perhaps to ask, but before she could speak, Michael's phone buzzed again. The name flashing across the screen made her freeze. Thomas Grant, the CEO of Atlas Air. Michael accepted the call, then pressed the speaker button, setting the phone gently on the armrest so his voice, and the voice of the man on the other end, could be heard clearly throughout the first-class cabin. "Mr. Harrington," Grant's voice was deep, resonant, but edged with strain. "I understand there's been an incident on your flight." Every conversation in the cabin stilled. Even the sound of the air system seemed to fade. Passengers glanced at each other, realizing they were suddenly privy to a conversation far above the pay grade of any airline crew. "Yes," Michael said evenly. "There has." Grant cleared his throat. "I'd like to assure you, this matter can be handled internally. There's no need to escalate." Michael's lips curved, not into a smile, but something colder. "Internally? You mean quietly, without public accountability?" "I mean efficiently," Grant countered. "If there's been a misunderstanding, we can correct it immediately. I'm sure we can find a resolution that satisfies all parties." Linda stood frozen in the aisle, color draining from her face, as she realized the man she'd targeted had a direct line to the very top of the company she worked for. Charles shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his earlier smugness curdling into unease. Michael leaned forward slightly. his tone still calm, but cutting. Your employees saw a black man in first class and assumed fraud. They challenged my right to a seat I purchased weeks ago in front of an entire cabin of witnesses, some of whom are currently broadcasting live to thousands. That's not a misunderstanding, Thomas. That's discrimination. The silence that followed was almost physical. Sophie's viewers flooded her stream with comments. He said it. CEO just got called out. This is huge. Grant's reply was careful, too careful. If any of my employees acted inappropriately, they will be dealt with. I'm asking you to allow me to address this without it becoming a larger issue. Michael glanced at Karen, then Linda, then the briefcase beside him. It's already a larger issue, and I'm not interested in private damage control. I'm interested in structural change. On the other end, Grant hesitated. Michael, perhaps we should speak one-on-one after you land. Michael's gaze sharpened. No, we'll speak now. And I want Evelyn Shore on this call, immediately. The name landed like a dropped stone. Karen's grip on her tablet tightened. Linda's eyes flicked to her manager, unsure what to do. Even Charles, who had been shifting in his seat, froze mid-motion. Grant's voice had lost some of its practiced smoothness. Evelyn is in a meeting at the moment. Then interrupt her, Michael said, his tone still even but carrying the weight of a non-negotiable command. Because the decisions made in the next few minutes will determine the trajectory of this company for years, and I want her to hear them in real time. The live stream counter leapt, 15,000. Sophie's audience was going wild. Who's Evelyn Shore? He's ordering the CEO around. This is next level. Grant didn't reply immediately. There was the faint sound of muffled voices, the click of a door closing, footsteps. Then, "One moment, Michael." Michael sat back, eyes half-lidded, the very picture of composure. Around him, the cabin's energy had shifted yet again. The undercurrent of impatience and pressure that had been directed at him was dissolving into something else entirely. Anticipation. They didn't know exactly what was about to happen, but they knew they were watching someone in absolute control of the battlefield, dictating the next moves to the highest authority in the company. Sophie whispered into her phone, "He's calling out their COO. This is insane. You guys are watching history." Michael didn't move, didn't speak again until the line clicked and the background noise on the call changed. The click on the line was followed by a new voice, cool, measured, and laced with the kind of corporate precision that could cut through steel. "This is Evelyn Shore," she said. "I've been briefed on the situation, Mr. Harrington. Atlas Air has standard verification procedures for premium seating. We are simply following protocol." Her tone was ice over granite. There was no apology, no concession, only the assertion of authority wrapped in legal insulation. Michael's gaze didn't shift, but the muscles at his jaw flexed once. Standard protocol that includes asking for credit card verification after boarding, in front of other passengers? Evelyn didn't miss a beat. When irregularities are detected, our crew has the discretion to ensure the integrity of our seating assignments. It's about maintaining fairness for all customers. The phrasing was deliberate, crafted for plausible deniability and to make it sound as though Linda and Karen were guardians of some noble fairness rather than perpetrators of bias. Across the aisle, Sophie's phone trembled slightly in her hand. The live stream comments were divided. Some were furious at Evelyn's deflection, others sensing the strategic chess match unfolding. Then Sophie's screen flashed with a private message notification. She frowned, swiping quickly to read it without ending the stream. The sender's name was hidden, just Anon. The message read, "I'm an inspector with the Department of Transportation. I'm sitting in 5C. Keep streaming. This isn't just corporate misconduct, it's a federal matter." Sophie's pulse jumped. She bit back the urge to glance over her shoulder. Instead, she angled the camera slightly to keep Michael in frame while her mind raced. Undercover Fed. Right here. On the phone, Evelyn continued. "I understand you're an important client, Mr. Harrington. but we have to ensure that the systems in place are respected by everyone equally. Michael let the silence stretch for a heartbeat too long before replying. Equally. That's a fascinating word choice, considering no one else here has been asked for a credit card. Somewhere behind Sophie, a voice, low, male, spoke into what sounded like a lapel mic. She couldn't make out the words, but the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. Evelyn's tone didn't change. Our priority is the smooth operation of the flight. The longer this dispute continues, the more disruptive it becomes for all passengers. And there it was, the pressure point. The attempt to make Michael the villain in the eyes of the crowd. Sophie saw it too. Her viewers were reacting instantly. Classic blame shift. They're trying to turn everyone against him. The atmosphere in the cabin thickened. People shifted, glanced at watches. The earlier flicker of support Michael had sensed was dimming under the weight of Evelyn's framing. Michael's reply was calm, almost conversational. You've made it disruptive, Evelyn, not me. And you've done it in full view of witnesses who are recording this in real time. There was a pause on the line, slight, but telling. Then Evelyn said, Mr. Harrington, I recommend we find a private resolution before this escalates further. At that, Sophie's phone buzzed again. Another message from Anon. FAA liaison en route to gate. Keep recording. We'll intervene when instructed. Sophie's eyes widened. She didn't say a word, but she felt as though she were holding a live wire. Michael, oblivious to the specifics but attuned to shifts in energy, leaned back slightly. Private resolutions protect institutions, Evelyn. Public accountability protects people. I'm here for the latter. Evelyn's voice cooled another degree. I'll be noting your refusal to cooperate in our incident report. Be sure to note the reason, Michael said. The live stream counter climbed past 18,000. Sophie's viewers were eating up every second, and she suspected they had no idea there was a federal inspector just 3 rows behind her. The conversation between Michael and Evelyn reached a stalemate. She repeated the corporate line once more, and he responded with the same unflappable calm, each refusing to give the other an inch. Then, from the far end of the jet bridge, the sound of heavy footsteps approached. 2 uniformed officers appeared in the doorway, airport police. The gleam of their badges caught the cabin lights. Linda's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile as she stepped toward them. Officers, thank you for coming. We have a passenger refusing to comply with crew instructions. Her voice was syrupy with false professionalism, as though she were the beleaguered guardian of safety, forced to call for help. The taller officer glanced toward Michael, then at Linda. We'll need to hear both sides. Linda tilted her head, the smile never faltering. Of course. But we do need to remove him from the aircraft so we can depart on time. Michael didn't move. He simply looked at her, the corners of his mouth almost imperceptibly tightening. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, the silent alignment of corporate policy, legal shields, and now, physical enforcement. Sophie's live stream caught Linda's expression perfectly as she turned back to the officers. It was the kind of smile that said checkmate. The kind of smile that convinced bystanders the game was already over. And then Linda said it, just loud enough for Michael to hear over the low hum of the cabin. This ends now. The officers stood in the doorway, their presence a looming shadow over the front of the cabin. Linda had positioned herself just in front of them, still wearing that small, satisfied smile. Karen clutched her tablet like a shield, her eyes darting between Michael and the uniformed men. Evelyn's voice still hummed faintly over the speakerphone, layered with the kind of corporate restraint that could smother oxygen out of a room. Michael didn't stand right away. He let the tension breathe, the silence stretch until it was almost unbearable. Then, without a hint of rush, he reached for his phone again. This time he didn't scroll through contacts with the discretion he'd shown earlier. This time his movements were deliberate, visible to anyone watching. He pressed a name. The line rang once before a deep, steady voice answered. Michael. Harold. We're activating the clause. Michael's tone was calm, but there was steel threaded through it. Poison pill, effective immediately, unless Atlas Air's governance can guarantee documented human rights protections in operational policy. Karen's head snapped toward him, her professional mask cracking for the first time. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "You're certain?" "Absolutely," Michael replied. "You and I both know their track record. This incident is the tipping point." Sophie's live stream caught every syllable. Her viewers, now 22,000 strong, erupted in scrolling comments. "Poison pill? Is this finance war? He's not just a passenger," Michael continued, his voice cutting through the cabin like a clear bell. "Inform the board. If governance refuses to amend bylaws to include enforceable anti-discrimination measures, we'll trigger full dilution, no exceptions." The other end was silent for a moment. Then Harold's voice returned, crisp and final. "Understood. Consider it done." Michael ended the call and set his phone down on the armrest, not bothering to hide the satisfaction in his movements. Karen's radio crackled suddenly. "Gate control to Karen. Harold Whitaker is on the shareholder line demanding immediate board assembly." Harold Whitaker. The name alone was enough to send a shiver through any Fortune 500 boardroom. He was the chair of the State Employees Pension Fund, the single largest institutional shareholder of Atlas Air. If he was on the line, the tremors were already reaching the top floors of corporate headquarters. Before Karen could respond, Sophie's phone pinged with a new flood of comments. "This is live shareholder revolt. Board meeting now." He's dismantling them mid-flight. Michael turned slightly, his gaze sweeping the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, you're witnessing something rare, corporate accountability in real time." As if on cue, Sophie's live stream caught another voice, this one coming through Harold's own press briefing on a separate feed. "As majority institutional shareholders, we no longer have confidence in the current board of Atlas Air. Effective immediately, we are calling a special vote of no confidence." The words were like an electric current jolting through the cabin. Even passengers who'd been disinterested until now looked up, eyes wide. Some mouthed, "No confidence?" to each other. Linda's smile evaporated. Karen's grip on her tablet tightened until her knuckles went white, and Evelyn's voice, still on the line, was suddenly sharper. "Michael, this is highly irregular. You can't just—" "I can," he cut in. "And I will. When shareholder governance intersects with civil rights violations, the decision isn't irregular, it's necessary." The live stream counter hit 25,000. Sophie's viewers spammed reactions. The taller officer in the doorway leaned toward Linda, whispering something. But Michael's voice carried over them. "The days of quietly protecting discriminatory cultures are over. You either adapt or you dissolve." It wasn't loud, but it was impossible to ignore. Karen's radio buzzed again, this time frantic. "Corporate to gate. Stop all non-essential communications. We are in executive crisis mode." In the row ahead, Charles Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. He had been quiet since Evelyn came on the line, but now his face was flushed, his jaw tight. His eyes darted between Michael, the officers, and the watching passengers. The tension was boiling under his skin. Suddenly, he shot to his feet. "Atlas Elite is ours!" he barked, his voice cracking with anger. The cabin froze. Even Evelyn's voice on the line went silent. Sophie's camera swung toward Charles, capturing the reddened face, the trembling hands gripping the headrest of the seat in front of him. "Atlas Elite," he spat, "is a private membership program. We built it for people who deserve it, not for—" He stopped just short of saying the word that hung unsaid in the air. Michael's gaze locked on him, steady, unreadable. Sophie's livestream chat exploded. "He just outed it. What's Atlas Elite? Sounds like discrimination club." The older woman in 3A gasped quietly, leaning toward her husband. Passengers were exchanging glances. Shock mingled with a dawning understanding that the incident in front of them was part of something larger, darker, and deliberately hidden. Charles looked around as if realizing too late what he'd just admitted. But the damage was done. The phrase, "Atlas Elite," was already shooting through Sophie's chat feed, soon to be clipped and shared beyond her audience. Michael leaned back slightly, his voice calm as ever. "Thank you for clarifying." The silence that followed was deafening. Somewhere deep in the corporate heart of Atlas Air, Michael knew the alarm bells had gone from ringing to blaring. The outburst from Charles still hung in the air like smoke after a detonation. "Atlas Elite is ours," he'd shouted, his voice raw with indignation, his meaning impossible to mistake. The phrase had been a quiet rumor among frequent flyers, but never spoken aloud in public, much less on a live stream being watched by tens of thousands. Michael didn't move, letting the weight of Charles's words seep into every corner of the cabin. The passengers shifted, some with eyes narrowing in recognition, others with expressions of dawning shock. It was Sophie's viewers who pieced it together first. Her chat scrolled so fast it blurred. Atlas Elite was racist club? Membership by skin tone? Expose them. Michael finally broke the silence, his voice cool and precise. "Perhaps you'd like to explain what Atlas Elite is, Charles." Charles blustered. It's a premium tier for high-value passengers. People who, represent the airline's brand." "High value?" Michael repeated, each syllable deliberate. "And what's the criteria? Net worth, miles flown, or the color of their skin?" Charles flushed deeper, glancing toward Linda for rescue. She looked away. Karen's tablet chimed, the sound oddly loud in the tense quiet. She fumbled it open, glancing at the screen before quickly locking it again. But not quickly enough. Michael caught the flicker of an internal memo, Atlas Air letterhead stamped at the top. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, "care to share what just crossed your screen?" Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's not relevant to—" "I think it is." From the rear of the first-class cabin, a low voice spoke. "It's very relevant." All heads turned. The voice belonged to a man in a plain navy blazer seated in 5C, someone who'd been quiet the entire flight. Sophie recognized him instantly from the anonymous messages. The undercover Dea inspector. The inspector didn't stand, but his presence shifted the air. "Atlas Elite," he said evenly, "operates under internal guidelines that classify certain passengers as risk priority. In practice, that means enhanced verification for travelers they deem at risk of fraud." "And what does at risk mean in Atlas Air Code?" Michael asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. The inspector's eyes moved to Charles, then to Linda, before settling on Karen. "In this airline's operational language, it's a euphemism for passengers of color, particularly black travelers in premium cabins." Gasps rippled through the rows. Sophie's viewers erupted. They said it. Federal violation. Holy! Karen's composure began to crack. She looked at Michael, then at her tablet, as though weighing whether the cost of hiding the truth was higher than the cost of letting it out. And then, almost as if the decision was made for her, a soft beep came from her lanyard mic. She reached up, switched it off, and sighed. "I've been recording this entire interaction," she admitted. The admission drew a collective inhale from the cabin. "For your protection?" Michael asked. Karen nodded. "After a year working under Evelyn Shore, I learned to cover myself. Everything from the moment you boarded is on file, and there's more." She hesitated, glancing around the cabin as though to check for Evelyn herself. Michael's eyes stayed on her. "Go on." Karen tapped the tablet, opened a secure folder, and turned the screen toward Michael so that only he and Sophie's camera could see. The document at the top was a directive from E. Shore, COO, timestamped just 20 minutes before boarding. The subject line, 1A passenger, enhanced verification. The body, reassign if possible. If pushback occurs, escalate to security. Remove quietly. Do not create media exposure. Flag as high risk in Atlas Elite tracking. And beneath that, in Evelyn's clipped style, push through alternate routing. Don't make noise. The live stream caught Michael's reaction. A slow inhale, the faint narrowing of his eyes. Sophie whispered into her mic, "We've got the smoking gun." The inspector in 5C spoke again, his voice carrying enough for everyone to hear. That directive alone is a compliance nightmare. Coupled with the pattern of selective enforcement, it's grounds for federal investigation. Linda shifted in place, her earlier smugness gone entirely. Charles looked like he'd swallowed a stone. Michael handed the tablet back to Karen. "Thank you," he said, his tone deliberate. Sophie's viewers were losing their minds. They have proof. Federal case incoming. Evelyn's done. Karen exhaled, almost in relief. "You understand, Mr. Harrington, this could cost me my job." Michael's reply was steady. "It might save your career too." Before anyone could speak again, Sophie's phone buzzed. Another direct message from Anon lit her screen. "We have enough. DOT is opening a federal case file. Stay on the stream." Her breath caught. She didn't look back toward 5C, but she knew the inspector was watching her just as closely as she was watching Michael. The moment felt like the hinge on which the entire flight, and maybe the company, would turn. Michael let the weight of Karen's revelation hang in the air for a few moments longer. The directive from Evelyn Shore was more than a smoking gun. It was a blueprint of bias, delivered in black and white. Passengers whispered. Sophie's live stream chat was a wall of emojis in capital letters, and the undercover DOT inspector's gaze was steady, as if mentally cataloging every reaction. Michael straightened in his seat and placed his phone squarely on the armrest, activating the speaker. "Thomas," he said, knowing full well the CEO was still listening in silence from the earlier call. "Here are my terms for resolving this before your market cap loses another $500 million by the closing bell." You could have heard a pin drop in the cabin. 5 requirements, Michael said. Non-negotiable, 90-day implementation timeline. He began ticking them off on his fingers, his voice even but carrying the precision of a boardroom mandate. 1. Mandatory, in-person anti-bias and cultural competency training for all customer-facing employees. No online modules, no shortcuts. 2. Body cameras for all passenger interactions in premium cabins and customer service desks. Real-time cloud upload, third-party oversight. 3. Quarterly diversity and inclusion audits by an independent firm, with results published publicly within 48 hours. 4. Transparent reporting of all customer complaints related to discrimination, with data sets broken down by location, route, and staff involved. And 5. Direct escalation of all discrimination allegations to the C-suite. No middle management filters, no burying complaints. Linda stared at him as if each point were another nail sealing a coffin. Karen's eyes darted to her tablet, perhaps already imagining the policy overhaul these conditions would demand. Charles shifted uncomfortably, though his earlier arrogance was nowhere to be found. "And to be clear," Michael continued, "failure to meet these requirements within the 90 days will result in immediate, public divestment of my firm's holdings, accompanied by a detailed report naming Atlas Air as an unsuitable investment due to institutional discrimination." The live stream chat was a frenzy. He's gutting them. 5 points, 90 days. This is how you play power. Thomas finally spoke, his voice tight. "Michael, these changes will require substantial budget allocation. Less than the lawsuits you'll face without them," Michael cut in. "And you're already bleeding goodwill in real time." Before Thomas could reply, Michael's phone buzzed again. This time, the caller ID showed a conference line, Harold Whitaker's number. Michael tapped to answer, and the deep voice of the pension fund chair filled the cabin. "We've been monitoring the live stream," Harold said without preamble. "The state employees' pension fund stands with Mr. Harrington's demands. Effective immediately, we are forming a shareholder alliance with 3 index funds holding significant Atlas Air equity." Karen's jaw dropped. Harold went on. "If the board refuses these reforms, we will initiate a vote of no confidence in Evelyn Shore and the current board of directors." The murmurs in the cabin swelled. Sophie's audience hit 30,000, her chat scrolling so fast it was unreadable. "Shareholder coup. Board is done. Alliance equals game over." Michael allowed himself the faintest smile. "Thank you, Harold. Your timing is impeccable." The DOT inspector in 5C was still silent. but there was a flicker of approval in his eyes. He knew exactly what this meant. The corporate walls weren't just cracking, they were caving in. "Thomas," Harold's voice continued, "I recommend your legal and governance teams take these demands seriously. Public confidence is fragile, and the next news cycle will be brutal." Michael ended the call without further comment. He didn't need to elaborate. The image was already clear in everyone's mind. One call, and the company's own largest shareholders had turned against its leadership. Synwave. The energy in the cabin surged. Passengers leaned forward, sensing they were witnessing a takedown that was both surgical and devastating. This was the moment Michael's arc shifted from besieged victim to undisputed power broker. Even the officers at the door seemed to pause, as if reassessing who exactly they'd been called in to remove. Then came the chime of an incoming message on Karen's tablet, the kind of alert that wasn't just internal. It was tagged with government seals. Her eyes scanned it quickly, and she blanched. Captain Morales' voice came over the cabin PA, clipped and urgent. "Karen, please step to the cockpit." She moved forward, handing the tablet to the captain in the doorway. Morales' brow furrowed as he read. Then he looked up toward the front of first class. "Mr. Harrington," Morales said, "we've just received an official directive from the Department of Transportation and the Federal Aviation Administration. We are to preserve the scene as is and retain the identities of all staff involved for federal inquiry." Linda went pale. Charles's head snapped toward the officers. Evelyn's voice, still faintly audible from the phone connection, was suddenly sharp. "Captain, I need to—" "Ma'am," Morales interrupted. "This is now a federal matter. We are under instruction to cooperate fully." The inspector in 5C finally stood, pulling a slim wallet from his jacket and flipping it open to reveal a federal badge. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but carrying to every seat, "this is no longer just a customer service issue. It is an active investigation." The live stream erupted into chaos. "Fed confirmed. FAA and DOT on board. Atlas Air is cooked." Michael leaned back in his seat, fingers lightly drumming on the briefcase. The scene was preserved. The players were identified. The clock on his 90-day deadline had just started ticking. The hum of the air filtration system filled the silence after the DOT inspector's declaration. For a few long seconds, no one moved. Then Captain Morales stepped fully into the cabin, holding Karen's tablet like it was evidence, which Michael knew it now was. "Mr. Harrington," the captain said, "corporate headquarters is initiating an emergency teleconference. They've asked to patch it through via the cockpit system so all necessary parties can participate." Michael inclined his head. "By all means." Morales gestured to a flight attendant, who hurried forward with a portable comm panel connected to the cockpit feed. The small screen blinked to life, showing a gallery of faces, Atlas Air's senior executives, legal counsel, and several board members. Thomas Grant sat at the center, flanked by advisors. On another tile, Evelyn Shore's expression was carved from glass. "This meeting," Thomas began, "is to address both the immediate incident on Flight 892 and the broader concerns raised by Mr. Harrington. For transparency, the feed will remain open to relevant stakeholders." Michael didn't miss the phrasing. Relevant stakeholders. That meant the shareholder alliance was listening in, maybe even the DOT and FAA liaisons. He leaned forward slightly, voice steady but projected, so it carried to both the physical cabin and the digital one. "Since you've invited transparency, let's start with numbers." The word alone made several executives shift in their seats. Numbers were Michael's language and his weapon. Atlas Air paid $23.4 million in discrimination-related settlements last fiscal year, he began. "That's a 178% increase over the industry average for carriers of your size. Your legal expense ratio tied to these cases is 2.3 times that of competitors." He let the figures hang before continuing. "In the last 6 hours, your stock has dropped 14%, wiping $612 million from your market cap. My firm alone has taken an $87 million paper loss so far. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Michael went on. Now let's talk ROI, return on investment, for bias prevention. Industry data shows companies implementing comprehensive anti-bias programs see a 26% reduction in litigation costs within 12 months, plus measurable gains in customer retention. You'd recoup program expenses in less than 2 years. Sophie's live stream audience had crossed 38,000. Comments flooded in. He's schooling them. This is a boardroom on wings. Numbers don't lie. Michael's tone sharpened slightly. You can continue bleeding capital and goodwill, or you can meet the 5 requirements I've outlined and turn this liability into a competitive advantage. Before Thomas could respond, Evelyn leaned forward. Her voice was smoother than it had been over the phone earlier, but it carried the faint edge of condescension. "Mr. Harrington," she said, "you've made your point. The board recognizes the seriousness of this incident. I propose a resolution. Keep the acquisition deal on track, and we'll make targeted personnel changes. We can relocate certain employees who have demonstrated poor judgment." Linda stiffened where she stood in the aisle. Charles shifted uneasily. Karen's gaze dropped to the floor. Michael's eyes never left Evelyn. "Relocate?" "Correct," Evelyn said. "We'll remove the individuals responsible from customer-facing roles. Quietly, permanently. The optics will improve, and you can announce a partnership moving forward." The sin wave dipped. In the cabin, some passengers looked as if this was a reasonable compromise. Sophie's chat was split, some urging Michael to take the win, others sensing the trap. Michael leaned back, his fingers steepled. "So your solution is to offer me a handful of scapegoats, sacrifice the pawns, keep the board unchanged." Evelyn's smile didn't falter. "Sometimes symbolic action is what the market responds to." Michael's voice cooled to a scalpel edge. "Symbolism doesn't dismantle systems. It placates headlines." Thomas shifted slightly, as if to intervene, but Michael pressed on. "You're offering me trophies. I'm offering you transformation. This isn't about a few bad actors. It's about the culture and policies that empower them." The live stream comments spiked. "Not taking the bait. Systemic change or nothing. This is why he's a CEO." Evelyn's voice hardened. "You're asking for upheaval. That kind of change takes time." "You have 90 days, Michael said flatly. "And the alternative is losing your largest investors, a federal investigation ending in consent decrees, and the complete erosion of brand equity. Upheaval is already here. You can either manage it or be consumed by it." The tension in the virtual room was palpable. A few board members looked away from their cameras. Legal counsel scribbled notes furiously. Evelyn's lips thinned. "You speak like someone who thinks he can dictate terms to this company." "I don't think," Michael said, his voice calm but resonant. "I know. Because right now, my position, and that of the shareholders aligned with me, gives me effective veto power over your leadership." The sin wave began to climb again. Passengers who'd been silently watching began to lean in, sensing the momentum shift back toward Michael. Sophie's viewers spammed fire emojis and clapping gifs. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Thomas Grant lifted a hand. "Evelyn." She looked at him, her expression a mixture of surprise and defiance. Thomas's voice was steady, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. "Ms. Shore, hand over emergency operational authority to me, effective immediately." The words landed with the force of a gavel. In the cabin, Karen blinked, her lips parting in shock. Linda's eyes widened. Charles muttered something under his breath. Sophie's chat exploded. "CEO just pulled rank. Evelyn's out, live. This is unreal." On the screen, Evelyn's face drained of color, but she didn't argue. She leaned back in her chair, the stiffness in her posture the only sign of resistance left. Thomas turned back to the camera, his gaze on Michael. "Now, let's discuss the path forward." For a moment, the teleconference feed was silent except for the faint hum of static. Evelyn Shore sat frozen in her little square on the screen, her jaw tight, eyes unblinking. Thomas Grant's voice had cut through her defenses like a scalpel. Then, slowly, Thomas turned his gaze toward the board members flanking him. "We will adopt the 5 conditions Mr. Harrington has outlined, exactly as stated." He spoke each word deliberately, making it clear this was not a point of debate. Effective immediately, all customer-facing staff will be enrolled in mandatory in-person anti-bias and cultural competency training. Body cameras will be deployed across premium cabins and service desks. We will initiate independent quarterly diversity audits, publish complaint data publicly, and ensure every discrimination allegation is escalated directly to the C-suite. The reaction in the cabin was a quiet ripple, passengers glancing at each other, some nodding subtly. Sophie's live stream chat lit up with applause emojis, and "This is history." Thomas continued, his voice firm, but now edged with something closer to resolve than damage control. "Additionally, Linda Carter is relieved of her duties, effective immediately." Linda's breath caught audibly. She didn't argue. She simply looked down, fingers twisting the hem of her uniform jacket. "Charles Whitmore," Thomas went on, "is suspended from all Atlas Air Elite privileges pending investigation into his conduct and statements made during this flight." Charles's head snapped up. "What? You can't—" "We can," Thomas cut in. "And we will." The live stream chat swelled with comments. "Good riddance, accountability, no special treatment for racists." Thomas's tone shifted slightly, signaling the next blow. "An internal investigation into Ms. Shore's tenure will begin immediately, focusing on operational policies, membership criteria for Atlas Elite, and all directives issued under her authority." On the screen, Evelyn's expression hardened, but she didn't speak. Michael sat still, hands resting lightly on his briefcase, his expression one of measured satisfaction. He didn't smile. This wasn't a victory parade. It was the beginning of the work he'd come here to force into motion. And then, something unexpected happened. Linda lifted her head. Her voice, when she spoke, was smaller than before, stripped of its earlier sharpness. "Mr. Harrington," the cabin went still again. "I'd like to request to be part of the training program," she said. "Not just as a participant, but to face you directly, publicly, to acknowledge what I did, if you agree." It was the kind of twist no one in the cabin, or on the live stream, had anticipated. Sophie's chat exploded with mixed reactions. "Too late. At least she's trying. Let's see if she's real." Michael studied her for a long moment. "You want to stand in front of the community you disrespected and own it?" Linda nodded once, tightly. "I do. I don't expect forgiveness. I need to be part of fixing what I helped break." Thomas raised an eyebrow but didn't interrupt. Michael's voice was calm. "I can accept that, on one condition. You don't vanish after one public appearance. You complete the full program and participate in at least 6 community forums where you listen more than you speak." Linda swallowed hard. "Agreed." The sin wave shifted. Anger cooled, replaced by a measured, cautious empathy. The older passengers in the cabin seemed to soften, recognizing a different kind of justice. Sophie's chat reflected it. Growth matters. Consequence plus rehabilitation. This is better than just firing. Thomas made a note on the pad in front of him. "We can incorporate that into the resolution plan." The DEOT inspector in 5C spoke up for the first time since revealing his role. "Mr. Harrington's framework aligns with federal compliance initiatives. My office will monitor implementation and verify results quarterly." Michael inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Good. We'll make sure your oversight has full access to data and personnel." Thomas looked down briefly, then back into the camera. "There's one more proposal from the shareholder committee." A new voice joined the call, a woman's, steady and businesslike. "Mr. Harrington, in recognition of your leadership and given the gravity of these reforms, The committee formally invites you to serve as special advisor on organizational reform for a 6-month term. The cabin reacted with a collective intake of breath. Sophie's audience flooded the chat. Yes, he's going to run the show, from passenger to power. Michael's brow lifted slightly. 6 months? Yes, the woman confirmed. Full authority to audit, recommend, and enforce compliance with the adopted reforms. Direct reporting to the board and shareholders. Michael glanced out the window at the fading light over the tarmac. He knew the symbolic weight of such a role, and the very real influence it would carry. I'll consider it, he said finally. But understand this. I don't take titles for optics. If I agree, I will expect full cooperation and zero interference. Understood, the voice replied. Thomas looked directly at Michael. We'll await your decision. In the cabin, Sophie's live stream counter ticked upward past 45,000 viewers. The narrative had shifted yet again, not just from confrontation to accountability, but to the possibility of long-term stewardship. And though the work ahead was steep, Michael knew the leverage was now entirely his. 6 weeks later, the name Harrington Protocol had already begun to circulate far beyond the boardrooms of Atlas Air. Internally, they called it the compliance revolution. But in the aviation industry, and in the pages of the Wall Street Journal, it had a cleaner, sharper ring. The numbers told their own story. Customer satisfaction scores, CSAT, had jumped from a dismal 2.4 to 4.5 out of 5. Retention among premium passengers rose 31%, while new bookings from minority travelers climbed 72%. Even Wall Street noticed. The company's market cap rebounded past its pre-incident high, gaining an extra 9% on top, a direct reflection of investor confidence. Atlas Air's quarterly report didn't shy away from the catalyst. In bold type, the CEO's letter to shareholders cited significant operational reforms inspired and shaped by the Harrington Protocol, which have improved both our cultural integrity and financial performance. And it wasn't just Atlas Air. Within 3 months, Delta, United, American, JetBlue, and Alaska Airlines had adopted variations of the 5-point framework. By the 1-year mark, Harvard Business Review was running case studies titled From Crisis to Competitive Advantage. The Harrington Protocol. MBA programs dissected the incident in leadership and ethics seminars. Law schools referenced it as a model for shareholder-driven corporate reform. Michael didn't attend every ribbon cutting or press conference. His style was quieter. When the 6-month advisory term began, he worked mostly in closed-door strategy sessions, focusing on structural change rather than optics. But those who were in the room described a man who could dismantle a bad policy in 3 questions and rebuild it in 2. The reforms were measurable. Anti-bias training reached 100% of customer-facing staff by month 4. Body cameras rolled out ahead of schedule, with independent audits showing a 93% drop in verified discrimination complaints. Quarterly diversity audits became not just a requirement, but a point of pride, with results published in plain language for customers to read. Complaint transparency drove a 40% faster resolution time and reduced legal escalations by 58%. The Harrington Protocol had crossed into other industries too. Luxury hotels, major banks, even a national grocery chain adopted its pillars. For Michael, the real satisfaction came from the people who'd been part of the journey. Karen Mitchell, the gate manager who had recorded the incident from the moment he boarded, was promoted to Director of Customer Experience. Her first official act was to expand the scope of customer feedback analysis to include sentiment tracking across demographics, a direct outcome of data blind spots exposed during the investigation. Without Karen's file, Michael later said in a shareholder meeting, we'd still be debating whether there was a problem. Sophie Reed's trajectory was just as striking. The young woman whose live stream had made the incident impossible to bury was now a contracted media contributor for the DOT, producing short-form content explaining passenger rights and regulatory protections. Her Instagram audience, tripled since that day, became a powerful channel for civic education. In a video interview months later, Sophie reflected, "I thought I was just holding up my phone. Turns out, I was holding up a mirror to a system that needed to see itself clearly. At the one-year anniversary, Atlas Air hosted a joint symposium with the DOT and FAA, inviting industry leaders, regulators, and advocates to discuss the ripple effects of the Harrington Protocol. Panels debated implementation costs, training efficacy, and data transparency. Michael attended only one session by design, but his presence drew a standing ovation from a room full of people who, a year earlier, had barely known his name. The twist that warmed even the hardest skeptics came at the end of the day's program. Karen and Sophie walked on stage together to present a joint report on the passenger's voice in policy reform. They spoke of that flight not as an isolated battle, but as the opening chapter in a wider movement. As they finished, Karen glanced at Michael in the front row. Sometimes, the person you're sent to remove turns out to be the one who helps you find your purpose, Sophie added. And sometimes a live stream changes more than the news cycle. It changes the rules. It was the kind of moment that would have gone viral on its own. But the cameras in the room caught something else. Michael, sitting with his hands folded, nodding just once. A faint but unmistakable smile crossing his face. 8 months later, in a packed auditorium at a TED conference in Chicago, Michael stood alone on a minimalist stage. The screen behind him didn't show charts or numbers, just a single phrase: dignity by design. He told the story, not as a tale of outrage, but as a blueprint. He spoke of the costs of bias, the math of reform, and the way a single moment of leverage, if used with precision, could recalibrate an entire system. Midway through, he paused, letting the silence do the work. Then, with the same composure he'd held on Flight 892, he delivered the line that would be quoted in headlines, classroom syllabi, and boardroom walls for years to come. Power isn't for revenge, it's for standardizing dignity. The audience rose to their feet. Some clapped for the words, others for the arc they represented. From targeted humiliation to systemic change, from one man's seat on a plane to a protocol reshaping industries. And somewhere in that standing ovation, in the measured applause of those who'd watched, learned, and adapted, was the quiet, enduring proof that Michael Harrington's fight had never been about a chair in first class. It had always been about making sure everyone's seat, wherever it was, came with the same measure of dignity.